Hello once more, flesh bags. Now that we've gotten done with the boring formalities, we can finally delve into the good stuff. Today's topic is an important one. The Necron Hierarchy. Now I understand that might not sound particularly thrilling, however, it is extremely important to understand for future topics. So from the highest Phaerons to the lowest of Canopteks, today we're breaking down these structures to understand how a dynasty functions. Also, before the video starts, I want to thank you all for the support the first video got. I made it on a whim and probably tried too hard, but I genuinely want to, from the bottom of my soulless, heartless body, thank you. Also, to inform you that I have a proper Patreon now. There you can get early access to videos, typically a day early, behind the scenes access to work-in-progress images of these works, and even access to the scripts. You can donate as little as $1 a month and even get your name in this section of the video. Now then, on with the program! What better place to begin than with this image? The projection behind me is the breakdown of how our tombs function, and it's here where we begin, with the Phaeron. In the time of Flesh, a Phaeron was the de facto ruler of a dynastic territory. In this role, they passed commands from the Triarch down to the lower classes. However, they were still able to govern their own territories as they saw fit. But once the Necron tier became the Necron, the role of Phaeron became skewed. While still rulers of their dynastic borders, they now take on the role as commanders and generals, passing down their own rule with little to no counsel. There are some key Phaerons worth noting, such as Imhotep the Stormlord, Anarchy the Traveler, and Ultix of the Ithacast dynasty. What the Phaeron decrees is final. Their orders are not to be challenged, however many still will seek counsel from those below them. Typically this is your Crypteks and Overlords, however many still choose to go unchallenged. Now there are some other things worth noting about Phaerons that often gets overlooked, and that is the specific command protocols that makes one a Phaeron. These special command protocols overrule all others, and is what makes the Necrons see an individual as a Phaeron. In a typical dynasty, the Phaeron shouldn't have to pass their protocols to another, although if one should be slain or unable to awaken, or through dynastic tradition of trial by combat, or some other unfortunate event, a Phaeron may have to pass their command protocols to another, even though rare. It has happened, such as with Imhotep and Ultix. Imhotep through trial in combat, and Ultix through their father dying in battle. But that's getting into semantics, and I don't have time for that. So with that, I think we need to move on to our next section. The Royal Court of the Necron sees to the day-to-day operations of the dynasty, acting as advisors and also containing the Lich Guard, elite warriors of the dynasty. The Royal Court contains Overlords, Lords, Royal Wardens, and Crypteks. Overlords are a category all of their own, containing Nemessors, Visors, Arbitrators, and the occasional Usurpers. During the time of Flesh, an Overlord was usually someone related or close to the Phaeron, be they the child or brother of a Phaeron, or simply a renowned general that the Phaeron has employed. The jobs held by Overlords are important ones. Your standard Overlord acts under the Phaeron and commands singular worlds as Watchers and Guardians, and under them are Nemessors. Nemessors are esteemed generals, commanding the armies of the tombworld and holding high authority. Their job sees them as ultimate protectors of the tombworld and ensures its safety. Under them are lords and other generals. Visors, by the name, are themselves advisors to the overlords above them, and their job usually sees them stationed nearby, either on other worlds in the territory or next to the overlords. Lords are simply underlings of the overlord, acting as commanders and overseeing the daily tasks required of them to ensure the function of a tomb world. This role hasn't changed much from the time of Flesh, and also sees them on the same level as Crypteks, but are more often found on the battlefield, acting in place of an overlord. Oh, speaking of Crypteks, Crypteks are, to your feeble minds, comparable to your Psykers. Wielding great power that seems to be like magic, Crypteks act as advisors and mages to the Necron. Crypteks have spent eons mastering specific arts and fields of science that make them masters of their given field. Some of the most famous would be Technomancers, masters of technology capable of repairing Canopteks and other Necron with just a wave of their hand. Psychomancers, whose power over fear is capable of making even the most bravest of warriors cower in fear. Plasmancers, who are capable of shooting energized matter at a moment's notice. And Chronomancers, who are able to bend time to their will. There are obviously more, but I don't want to dwell on them for too long, as we still have much more to dive into. After them are Royal Wardens, who act as the voice of the Overlord, and are crucial on the battlefield, possessing the innate ability to adjust their orders passed to them by the Overlord, within reason, to ensure that the battle is won. Finally, there are the Lich Guard. These mighty warriors form the Honor Guard and are the backbone of the Necron military. These warriors have been stoic protectors of those whom they've been assigned without question. Adding on to that, typically there is one Lich Guard elected to be the personal bodyguard of a specific Overlord, usually to protect them from those who would wish to usurp the Overlord they are protecting, taking on the honor title of Varguard. One of the most famous examples of this would be Nemessor Xandrak and Varguard Oberyn. On the topic of the standing military, I think it's time that we move on to the forces of the tombworld itself. So now with that out of the way, we come to the first of two splits. These splits are the Armory, which itself is self-explanatory. It contains the monoliths, Doomsday Arcs, ships, and other weapons that are in the Necron arsenal. Then there are the Thal'rakh Praetorians. So, as mentioned in the first video, the Silent King ordered all the Necron to a great sleep. This was nearly true. Few remained online, and those were the Thal'rakh Praetorians. Their job was to ensure the compliance with the order to sleep, and to make sure that once the Necrons started awakening, that rites and traditions were upheld. And while they may adopt the dynastic colors and traditions of the dynasty they're assigned to, they, however, are what are called dynastic agents. These agents are not tied to one dynasty and will come and go as they see fit. Because of this, they typically carry their own armaments, such as particle casters, void blades, and rods of covenant. They will listen to orders, but are not bound to them, and will listen to only the voice of the Triarch. Most of the time, they're off awakening still slumbering dynasties, obtaining lost artifacts, and are ensuring that the awakened dynasties are following and upholding the traditions of eons past to ensure that the culture and history of the Necron aren't lost to time. Comically shorter than the Royal Court, but now we can take it another step lower into the Outcasts and the Legions. So to start, the Legions are made up of mortals and warriors. Despite the name, warriors, these near automata are made up of the common riffraff, mindless drones who know nothing but orders. Their bodies were constructed out of the poorest quality materials so that their rulers could have their own opulent bodies. Unable to speak, the mindless millions march onward into battle, whereas the immortals were those in the standing military forces of the Necron tier, not honor guards or anything of that sort, but higher up on the totem pole than the civilians that make up the warriors, and as such, they are armed with stronger armor and slightly more complex bodies and minds capable of making sense of the orders and are able to respond faster. But enough of them. They, warriors, and immortals can make topics all of their own, and I want to move on to my favorite cannon fodder, the Outcasts. Outcasts are made up of those lost to disease and plague of the Necron, such as the Destroyer virus, which consumes the mind of the Necron until it becomes an unstoppable killing machine, and the other are my favoriteest thing ever, the Flayed Ones. But this video will not be talking about them yet. They deserve their own spotlight. Same as Destroyers, but I will humor you all today briefly. Flayed Ones are those who get locked into a loop. I will not delve deeper into said loop, in fear that I too will fall. It starts slowly and simply until the Flayer's curse can take hold and makes those it infects want to consume flesh. Unable to do so, it drives them mad, and will eventually drape the meat over themselves, turning themselves into frightening ghouls. Whereas Destroyers can take many forms. Lords affected by the Destroyer virus can take on the form of colossal monstrosities or floating locust lord. Destroyers are unique in that they want nothing more than to kill. It's like a tick, something they have to do, and because of it, they're unable to empathize with other Necrons and are usually seen as outsiders and are shunned, usually only brought out when times are desperate and when they're needed. It's a depressing thought, but we're through that now, and we got one last layer to get through. So I want to preface this with, Tam will get their own video. This area is going to cover the Canopteks. Catan are a huge part of the Necron lore, and I'm saving them for their own topic where I will do them justice. So Canopteks, what are they? Canopteks are constructs made by the Necron to act as and fill the gaps in roles for construction, mining, and on the battlefield. While many fill a more battlefield role, such as Doomstalkers, Wraiths, and even Reanimators, the constructs like Scarabs, Spiders, and Plasmacytes are simply worker drones. Scarabs break down matter into base elements and then are able to reconstruct that matter into new compounds. Because of this, they are at times seen on the battlefield chittering away at both fallen and still living enemies. Spiders act as hives for the Scarabs and are able to create more out of itself or repair those that are damaged in battles. Spiders also fill a unique role in that they act as the central brains for many other Canopteks, but more on that in a minute. And Plasmacytes act as small drones that scour the battlefield for parts of fallen Necrons that have yet to phase out, or are able to inject a Necron with pure hatred, make them even stronger in combat. Now, as mentioned before, there are Canopteks forms that exist purely for combat. Doomstalkers lumber over the battlefield with miniaturized versions of the very Doomsday cannons found on the aptly named Doomsday Arcs, but despite that, they're just as dangerous. Wraiths are slithering stalkers with no cognizance of their own. As stated earlier, the Canoptek Spider acts as a central brain, while the Wraith acts as the Tomb's eyes, ears, and main line of defense. They report back to the Canoptek Spider because of this. They are also armed with massive claws and phase shifters, and Reanimators wander the battlefields using their beams of microscarabs to repair and reconstruct Necrons in battle. I personally find Canopteks rather cute. They're chittering like the purring of cats. It soothes the soul I don't have. But I've gone on long enough, and I think it's time for us to part once more, fleshlings. I once again want to thank you for the support on the first video. It means the world to me. I have links in the description for my Patreon, Ko-fi, credits for the arts that I have used, and any other info that is required of me. And if you want your name to show up at the start of the videos, you can donate to my Patreon for $1 a month and get many more things like that. And with that, thank you for watching today. I cannot wait for us to meet once more, and I promise the next video will not be as boring as this one.